Greetings to you today on this Thursday, I guess it is, the 20th of June today. I don't know if you're liking the weather very much, but it sure feels like I'm still back in the Dominican with the heat and humidity we're having these last couple of days. And just be careful. Don't overdo on these kind of days. Today's devotion is entitled Sacrifice. The Charles Dickens portion of it is from the Old Curiosity Shop. Sacrifice. Her friend parted his breakfast with the child and her grandfather and inquired whither they were going. She told him that they sought some distant country place remote from towns or even small villages, even other villages, and with a faltering tongue inquired what road they would do best to take. "I know little of the country," he said, shaking his head, "but there are such places yonder." "And how far from here?" said Nell. "Aye, surely. We are here and must go on," and the child boldly, for he saw that the old man listened with anxious ears to his account. "Rough people, paths never made for little feet like yours, a dismal, blighted way. Is there no turning back, my child?" "There is none," cried Nell, pressing forward. "If you can direct us, do. If not, pray do not seek to turn us from our purpose." "God forbid, if it is so," and their uncouth protector, glancing from the eager child to her grandfather, who hung his head and bent his eyes upward upon the ground, "I'll direct you from the door the best I can." Before they had reached the corner, the man came running after them, and pressing her hand, left something in it. Two old, battered, smoke-encrusted penny pieces. Who knows but they shone as brightly in the eyes of angels as golden gifts that have been chronicled on tombs. This would be one of those passages for me that until I get the scoop on this story from Gene Fisher, I'm not sure what we're talking about. People looking for directions somewhere, evidently. As Dickens's tale of the Old Curiosity Shop progresses, young Nell Trent and her grandfather are forced to leave their shop when an unpaid debt leaves them homeless. They wander the streets of London, dirty and cold and begging to survive. Friends help them from time to time. In this scene, the man's gift of 2 pennies must have seemed like a fortune to Nell and the old man. The New Testament holds this story. As a way of honoring God, the Jews were instructed to give money to the temple and also to the poor. One day, when Jesus and his disciples were at the temple, they observed a poor woman, a widow, enter and put 2 coins of little value into the offering box. The disciples were unimpressed. But Jesus said, "This poor widow has put in more than all the others. All these people gave their gifts out of their wealth, but she out of her poverty put in all she had to live on." And that's from Luke 21, verses 3 and 4. The rich gave only part of what they had, but this woman gave all. No one noticed except God's Son. Jesus saw in her gift real sacrifice, real selflessness. The widow may have been poor, but her simple gift showed a faith greater than gold. God doesn't look at the size of your gift. He looks at the size of your heart. James chapter 2 and verse 5 says this: Has God not chosen the poor of this world to be rich in faith and heirs of the kingdom, which he promised to those who love him? Faith is more needed among the poor, is it not? Since oftentimes the poor must literally ask for their daily bread, as Jesus taught us to pray, not knowing what there will be tomorrow, not knowing what might come up, and they lose everything as they have so little. The rich, on the other hand, don't put much stock in faith. They trust themselves. They trust their wealth. They trust their riches. They trust all they can do, all that they have done so far in their lives to be in the position they are in. They're confident in themselves. It's a prideful, boastful kind of life for so many people who are rich. Not all. Some are very generous. But again, God's looking at the heart. In your generosity, what did you keep for yourself? In your generosity, did you determine the amount you would sacrifice against what you would keep? Because you wanted to make sure you didn't short yourself. That widow that day at the temple, as the wealthy ones came in and dropped their large amounts of money in the box so that it was heard, so that it was noticed, it was recognized. That was one of the things Jesus called the Pharisees on the carpet for. You do what you do because you want people to see it. You want people to be impressed with you. And that kind of attitude still lingers. People want others to know what they do, what they give. They want people to be impressed with them. Meanwhile, the poor give all they can when they're living in faith. When Sue and I went into mission work several years ago now, we were pastoring here at this church, felt God's call, and we raised support to go. Didn't work out like we thought it would as far as the calling and the plan for our lives that we thought we understood God had for us. But there was one lady in our church who we all knew wasn't a wealthy woman. And she came up to me one day after church service while we were in that process of raising funds, support funds, and said she would give us $5 a month. A couple of weeks later, I think maybe I can do $8 a month. Now, in the scheme of things, in the raising of support, you value it, but it's not a lot. But at the same time, when I looked into her eyes as she told me these things, I knew her heart. I knew that it was coming out of love and faith that she was doing what she was doing. And that's the kind of thing we're talking about here today. Sacrifice. Sacrifice, not because we get something in return, but because from our hearts we want to give all that we can, even if it makes us short in what we have left. That's faith. That's trust in God to supply. And like he says in Matthew 6, in the Sermon on the Mount, you worry about this, you worry about that, you worry about so many things. Seek first the kingdom of God and his righteousness, and all these things will be taken care of. There's no need to worry. There's no need to keep an accounting of things and worrying about yourself and how you can manage the situation yourself. You give, you trust God for all that you need. Sacrifice. Blessings to you today.